JDR News Live.
The human brain is made for thinking, not pubic experiment. It's hardly a tinker toy or experimenting. Not pubic with drugs.
Why do we talk about marijuana? It's the single biggest drug that is the source of some confusion.
This is really about educating the public about the fact that marijuana is a less harmful drug.
Marijuana, that's to get high.
You can be as high as you want.
The prohibition of marijuana over the last 71 years has not actually prevented you from using marijuana.
You feel weak.
Sure to winning the war on drugs.
I do believe there have been some successes.
We will never arrest our way out of this problem.
Welcome to the John Doe Radio Show, JDR News Live. Here on the 4th. Let me turn that down a little bit right there. Get settled into it. It is the 4th of November. Thank you very much for hanging out with us today on JDR News Live daily. Live on YouTube usually, but for some farking reason, there's a problem with the internet connection. So we're recording locally, uploading globally. I just thought of that. All right, I'll try and calm down here just a little bit. I'm trying to stay in a good mood after the Ohio decision yesterday. I've read a lot of good things, a lot of bad things about it, of why it was this and that, and really I've just decided to not stay completely upset with it. One thing that I do have an issue with that's come up again that I talked about before with Prop 19. By the way, I am super baked right now off of Scott Reach's Rare Dankness Leroy. Directly from the man himself, Scott Reach. Got to hang out with him today at Champs. And it was a fantastic time. Got to see a bunch of people. We'll probably get to that in a little while, but I kind of have to stay focused here because it's so damn high right now. I haven't smoked probably in like 2 or 3 days. I apologize for that. It's not something I enjoy telling you. But anyway, super dank stuff. Hung out with him for a minute. Got to chat with him. Super fun time. And this weed that he just gifted, legal exchange in Colorado. So blingin', so stanky. And I didn't have a jar or anything on me to put this weed inside. So it's just like walking around this convention loud as fart. Can you smell me? You see what I'm saying here? Ah, it's fantastic. I was not the only one. Not probably. I know I was not the only one. So, looking at the screen here, the camera, I'm like, keep your eyes open, dude. Anyway, thank you for hanging out with us. I had a problem streaming live to YouTube because the internet was not exactly working. We'll take care of that, uploading it, have a good times. I'm not sure where I went to right exactly after that. We'll get to news here in just a second, though. I have some news prepared for you off the cellular phone. So we'll go ahead and just read that Google News that we got off of this cell phone, including, but not limited to, especially with my own commentary and analysis, 6 reasons why marijuana failed in Ohio. Bernie Sanders introduces bill ending the federal, well, basically ending the federal ban on marijuana. Lost my place there. I haven't not used my phone in a long time to navigate news with. DEA chief says smoking marijuana as a medicine is a joke. And also, we'll probably get to the Mexico story, which is still top of the news whenever you type into Google. Oh, there we go. My phone is even dying 15% here. Jesus. I'm telling you, I rushed home from Champs to be able to do this show for you, so it's fun. Keep it a little stony this round. It's still top of the news. If you go to Google and type in marijuana, there's a news tab that you can click. You just click that news tab. A lot of the stories that I get are directly from there because Google obviously is going to know what's popular, know what's being clicked on the most, and the top stories usually appear at the top. It's a good way to follow what's going on day to day. Or say there's like the Ohio election last night, Ohio decision. Is all you got to do is click on it and then find out updated news stories from, not just one specific news source, but from all over the world and one of the most popular ones that are used. Good times, good times, good times. Big thanks to the sponsors that make the John Doe Radio Show possible for you. USA Cannabis Company, usacannabiscompany.com. Awesome consultants that you can go to help you navigate the cannabis system. And not only just navigate the cannabis system, one thing I think I've been leaving out here and not telling you about, the super secret of the gang, is they're an all-inclusive type situation. They have not only helping you navigate and build a business, but also build the actual framework of a building or a room or a concentrate extract facility. Jesus criminy. They have the ability to be able to do this construction for you. Tons of experience with construction. Just give them a holler. usacannabiscompany.com. They can take care of you. You can ask them about quotes. You can see examples of what they've done before, and just get yourself a good consultant, because that's really what everybody needs. And not just here in Colorado either. If you're from another legal state, send them a message. Tell them the John Doe Radio Show sent you, and they'll take care of you. Also, big thanks to Mogul Printing. Just hit @Mogul Printing online. The homies out in Baltimore. And the homie Black Will Breeze. Got a shout out to him. I hope we get him on the long version of JDR again. By the way, Bike will be back. Bike is not gone forever. Just in case anybody was worried or wondering about it. Some of you are like, yeah, that's cool, awesome. And some of you are like, aw, I'm just kidding. Shout out to Bike. But he will be back. We got to get this new studio situation figured out. Still being worked out. I know Adam's show and Mitch's show, the Adam Dunn show, they're waiting very, very patiently also to get it done. So anyway, also weedbiz.net. Make sure you check those guys out. If you need a grow pod, is kind of what it's called. If you need something that's not jank, something that's well put together, not just super glued or duct taped together, make sure you holler at them. Weedbiz.net. They have a lot of news also from the southern states. So if you're in those areas, make sure that you go to weedbiz.net. Check out some of the news articles that they have and the connection that you can get there. Sodite. And we'll let you know here ASAP on our brand new sponsors that we just got. For instance, Ajoya in Louisville, Colorado, AJOYA. Fantastic folks over there at their fantastic facility. And then possibly two others. It's been an exciting week. Spent the week here at Champs. Well, the last 2 days. Monday was kind of a work day to figure out how the hell I was going to make the rest of the week work. But it's been a fantastic time at Champs. Kind of a custody event. I talked to you about that yesterday. Explained to you that, it was basically businesses, brick and mortar shops, online shops, convention for them. Industry convention. Glass, vaporizers. When spice was still a thing, they had a lot of spice there. No longer a thing because it's illegal here. But I did see a ton of vaporizers. Just a ridiculous amount of vaporizers. Every single type of vaporizer that you could possibly imagine. By the way, Silver Surfer 7th Floor Products have this vaporizer called a Sidekick. And it's a super dope vaporizer. Great price on it. And this thing can toke concentrate. It can toke flowers. If you've ever seen like a Silver Surfer vaporizer, to me, the taste, the hit that you get off of it was absolutely the same as the Silver Surfer vaporizer. And I've been waiting for this thing. I think he said it was 6 years he's been talking about this. Steve, the owner at Silver Surfer over there. Been good friends with him a while. We used to give away a lot of Silver Surfers here on the JDR. They're awesome folks over there. But this vaporizer that they have called the Sidekick, fantastic. You probably shouldn't look anywhere else for a good quality vaporizer. Just check them out. I think they're taking pre-orders right at this point in time. So anyway, lots of other cool products. Got to hang out with Bob Snodgrass today. If you're not familiar with who Bob Snodgrass is, he basically started the whole pipe movement that we see today. Pipe making on dead lots around the country. And then, like I had mentioned to you yesterday, that he accidentally had put a silver piece, fell into the flame, somehow struck out, fumed, this glass piece that he had just kind of finished, and then when he was done with it, had this nice little, well, he didn't think it was nice at the time, had this like mirror, just stuff on it, and he was like, damn, the piece is ruined. Because before that, seriously, not a lot of colors being used at this point in time. Very, very, very few colors. That's what a lot of people don't understand about glass, is that these colors that are coming out and the colors that have been out haven't been around for that long. We're talking like even early 90s, where a lot of these colors that you're seeing today, besides just the basic colors, haven't been around. So all these nice clear colors and colors that sparkle and all this other stuff. Anyway, colors that glow in the dark, those haven't been around for that long. Anyway, I'll go over. I'm like, how can I cut this short and get back to the point in news so we can at least keep in time with the show? We'll get into that. We're going to talk a lot about glass once Mike gets back with the John Doe Radio Show. We'll talk with him about some of his favorite glass that he's been dealing with lately. He's getting kind of a mogul. He's becoming kind of not just the concierge of the cannabis community, but a mogul. All right. If you'd like to see some Facebook pictures, go to facebook.com, and the champs pictures that you can see there, everything that I've taken from my phone for the past 2 days. So if you want an image of what the glass and what was there at Champs, a good review of everything, I think there's like 130 pictures I've taken already. Make sure you head to my Facebook page. They're on there. Champs Day 1 and 2 is the photo album. Good times? Good times. Let's get to the news. 6 reasons marijuana failed in Ohio. The sheer size of today's crushing electoral defeat of marijuana legalization in the Buckeye State surprised political experts inside and out of Ohio. Despite a $12 million campaign, the proposed constitutional amendment known as Issue 3 lost. Amid its smoking wreckage, 6 reasons emerge to explain what happened to Issue 3 and what happens next. By the way, this story from USA Today News. With 99% of precincts Jiminy Christmas. Just talk, enunciate it. With 99% of precincts reporting the amendment was defeated 64 to 36%. The business plan. One of the reasons why it failed. Boy, that word monopoly. It's been an ugly word in politics since Theodore Roosevelt's day, says political scientist David Niven, however you say his last name, at the University of Cincinnati, said Tuesday night. Issue 3 was unique in the history of the modern legalization movement, as that it would have written into the Ohio Constitution provisions to limit the cultivation of the state's crop to 10 already chosen properties. Issue 3's backers said the plan's advantage would have been to allow the state to tightly regulate marijuana at the grow source. The technical term for such an economic model is, as we talked about here on JDR before, oligopoly monopoly. No, I'm just kidding. It is oligopoly. But the term monopoly got slapped on Issue 3 from the onset, and Issue 3 backers would never run it down. Issue 2. The state's political establishment that threw everything it could to stop Issue 3. The legislature wrote on Issue 2, which would prohibit market monopolies, explicitly to prevent a monopoly, oligopoly, or cartel. See, they put monopoly, oligopoly right there together. Granted, there's a comma right between them. I can hope they picked up on it, right? Or cartel from getting established in the state's constitution. Democratic Representative Mike Curtin of Columbus, who calls himself a constitutionalist, wrote on Issue 2. Then he helped to the assembly helped to assemble the key opposition group, Ohioans Against Marijuana Monopolies, which pulled together nearly 140 groups from around the state for a fight, including influential groups such as the Fraternal Order of Police, Chamber of Commerce, and a host of health organizations. The measure to legalize recreational marijuana was extreme, Curtin said. It was the most audacious proposed amendment in the state's history since we had the initiative process. Issue 3 backers called Issue 2 an effort to curb the initiative process. Voters did not agree and approved Issue 2. Full legalization versus medical marijuana. The 4 other states that have legalized marijuana so far: Alaska, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington. Washington, D.C. also has legalized. Has yet to put that in place, though, which takes an act of Congress. We've talked about that before. Had already established programs to permit people to get marijuana to treat various illnesses. Ohio's measure asked residents to make a huge jump from prohibition to full legalization, which is a point I also saw with a few other cannabis pundits, I guess you could say, people in the industry that do news and their opinions respected. I didn't really think about that until I had heard it from them. Because here in Colorado, I don't know, we do definitely take some things for granted, and that huge jump, I think that was something that was a little bit off the picture for any of us that were looking outside, you know, and to the entire industry, really, technically, if you want to get down to it, because we've never jumped from cannabis being completely illegal in any of these states to it being legal or some sort of legalization, whatever you want to call it, regulation. Medical marijuana has been a catalyst in quite a bit of that. Ohioans balked on it. We are not California. We're not the vanguard of hippiedom, Niven said. So offensive. It's a leap to go from no legal marijuana to legal marijuana, and it's not the leap that folks have made. Ohioans, though, are willing to consider medical marijuana. Curtin said that in debating the 2 measures around the state, he found that voters want to have the discussion, even though the Ohio legislature has refused for 18 years to consider medical marijuana bills. Curtin said no doubt the topic will be on the agenda soon. Off election year. Ian James, the executive director of Responsible Ohio, is a seasoned Ohio political operative. He said that putting legalization on the ballot in an off-year election would be less expensive than an even year, and it would guarantee that the subject would not be drowned out by other campaigns. But when other states have considered marijuana issues, it's always been on an even year election to capture the higher turnout. Asking voters to change something in an off-year election, like reform marijuana, that's a death knell. When you have 30%, only 30%, as opposed to 70% turnout in a presidential election year, said Alan St. Pierre, executive director of NORML. The movement. Marijuana activists always squabble over marijuana issues. Squabble, wobble, wobble. One reason that the 2010 proposition lost in California was because the marijuana farmers in the state's Emerald Triangle voted it down by 70%. Marijuana activists in Ohio were almost uniformly opposed to the measure. Many of them have been fighting the ban on marijuana for years, and the prospect of wealthy investors suddenly swooping down to throw money at the issue and then cashing in on the green rush was galling. Donnie Worthshafter of Athens, Ohio, a lawyer and a longtime activist, called Issue 3 evil and campaigned against it with a man dressed up as the banker from Monopoly board game. Said National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, St. Pierre, to have Don Worthshafters or progressive liberal columnists saying, I'm all for marijuana legalization, but I don't like this ballot initiative for activists. There were any number of reasons to oppose it. Jeez. And this next one, for sure was the reason why it lost. In fact, I blame everything on Buddy, the mascot. A cartoonish mascot with a head shaped like a marijuana bud did not move the conversation forward. Well, no Shatsu Sherlock. James and marijuana legalization supporters thought Buddy would be a kitschy, ironic statement for college kids. Instead, the character turned off adults who thought Buddy would appeal to children. Stupidest thing that I've seen, at least that I can remember right now. Stupidest situation and stupidest idea, dumbest idea that I have ever seen. Of course, parents and of course the opposition is going to have a huge blowtorch to fire on at you when you create a mascot that looks like a superhero and is cartoonish. Of course, kids are going to like that. How stupid and juvenile is it to think that college kids, that they would be that would be something that they would enjoy. They would be like, oh, check out this mascot over here. This makes me want to vote for legalization. Hey, maybe we should make some shirts. No. Stupid. If you want to be taken seriously, do things seriously. Instead, but he turned off adults. I think definitely there was an issue with advertising with a mascot that people really didn't approve of, said Morgan Fox from the Marijuana Policy Project. Ay. We'll analyze this a little bit more here in the future, probably sometime again next week. It's been an incredibly busy week for me. I haven't had a chance to sit down and put together everything that I've wanted to in the past 24 hours, especially when it comes down to talking about why the Ohio initiative is a punch to the gut for legalization and maybe why it may not change things anyway. The one thing that it definitely does, for sure, is delays access for people to legally use the drug of their choice. That really shows relatively small bits of harm across the board. And that's just saying that relatively small bits of harm across the board is just to cover my ass. I mean, really, there's not a lot of harm that comes from marijuana. Smoking, maybe possibly the worst. The harm that comes from marijuana is the drug war, period, end of story. Ridiculous. Anyway, we'll review over that again. I have some other ideas for who we can get on the show possibly to help talk about this too. And really what ultimately blew it for the initiative, which it did say in that article, is that it included that oligopoly. Oligopoly monopoly. That's the biggest reason why that failed. And one of the most frustrating parts about that is that the rest of the nation, God, enunciate right now, was looking at Ohio, and is looking really at anywhere that has a pro-marijuana initiative on it as direction for where the rest of the country is going to go when it comes down to cannabis use, cannabis legalization. That's my biggest fear, is that it slows down progress a little bit because there's other states in that country around. I don't want to say there's other states in the country. There's other states in the country around that area who are going to be less inclined to be able to push forward with cannabis legalization initiatives. Definitely people that are putting money into these campaigns are not going to want to put as much money or even invest at all into these campaigns when they see this. I don't know. It's definitely a frustrating situation. I feel bad for the people of Ohio. A lot of people talking about how we'll do it again next year. It's going to be far-fetched. But if I have to eat my words and you guys make it happen in Ohio, fantastic. We'd love that. But I can't see it happening again until 2020. Which Russ Belville has said this. His show now on CannabisRadio.com. He is an extensive writer on all things talked about and discussed when it comes to controversy in cannabis. He's a very well written out person, very well spoken person also. You may not agree with what he says, but a lot of the things that he puts down on the paper has huge weight to it because it's backed with facts. It's not just hearsay. It's just not off the top. So I definitely have looked to what he's saying, and when I started to sit down and think about it after he mentioned 2020, it's true, because if it really doesn't get on next year, which is very far-fetched for it to happen. Question 2, by the way, has nothing to do with cannabis getting on the ballot next year. First of all, the only way that it would affect it is if they tried to do the same bullshit that they did this year in Ohio and bring in a monopoly, oligopoly. That's really what it comes down to. If it's an initiative just like what we've done here in Colorado or in other places that involves the state to make regulations, it's an open market, businesses will be created, a regulation system from top to bottom. That's more likely what's going to be ran across the nation. I don't think we're going to see another initiative like this that included the oligopoly ever again. It was embarrassing. The number 64% of people voting against it. When we've seen so much positive, so much better numbers as we're going every year, seeing more support every year, having higher percentages of approval. That was a kick to the nuts. But really, like I said, and to wind this down a little bit, the real reason why it lost is because of that 10 company situation and 25 investors and Nick Lachey. It's all that bastard's fault. If you didn't know, Nick Lachey, one of the largest investors to that whole situation that was going on in Ohio. A lot of money into it. I heard close to like $10 million. Which, I don't know, this sounds atrocious to me. Like, how can you just throw that much money down on the table, lose it all, and then not have Jessica Simpson to fall back on? I don't know how it happens. Senator Bernie Sanders has introduced a bill that would end federal prohibition of marijuana, marking the latest move the Democratic presidential candidate has made toward ending the war on drugs. Super stony episode, man. This guy is baked. The Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act, introduced Wednesday, is modeled after a bill first proposed by Representative from Colorado, Jared Polis, in 2013, which was reintroduced this year as the Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol Act. The Senate bill would remove marijuana from the Drug Enforcement Administration's list of most dangerous drugs and strike marijuana from the Controlled Substances Act, allowing states to decide whether they want to legalize pot for recreational or medicinal use without federal intervention. Just as alcohol prohibition failed in the 1920s, it's clear marijuana prohibition is failing today, Polis said in a statement. For decades, the federal ban on marijuana has wasted tax dollars, impeded our criminal justice system, lined the pockets of drug cartels, and trampled on the state's ability to set their own public health laws. Today's introduction of the Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act in the Senate is a huge step toward moving to enact the common sense drug laws needed to grow the economy and restore fairness to our justice system. I'm sure we'll talk more about this in the future too, because it's not, I mean, just because it's Bernie Sanders doesn't mean that it's something that's absolutely going to go through. In fact, it's still going to take a lot of support and a lot of push from these extremely conservative Republicans. It's the frustrating part is it's purely politics. These bastards got to be extremely conservative, not allow something like this to go to, and then play the political table and not cross over to the Democratic side. I would think that we're at a point in time here in the drug war where a representative in Congress could sit there, make a decision to say, this is ridiculous, this is harming so many people, there's so many facts out there to show you why it's harming people, we should be treating people, not punishing them, and how that would be so bad for them to look on the Republican side. I just don't get it. The whole idea that you're pro on drugs doesn't really fly anymore when it comes to cannabis. You can't get in that much trouble anymore for being pro cannabis. Maybe, I guess you can locally. I don't know. Wishful thinking. It's just ridiculously frustrating that we have people we put in office, and then you have polls that show the people's willingness to be okay with you shifting your stance on marijuana or the drug war, and then it still is they got to play the local politics, and then when they get into Washington, they got to play the Washington politics. DA Chief Chuck Rosenberg on Wednesday rejected the notion that smoking marijuana is a medicine, calling the premise a joke. What really bothers me is the notion that marijuana is also medicinal, because it's not, Rosenberg said in a briefing to reporters. We can have an intellectually honest debate about whether we should legalize something that is bad and dangerous, but don't call it medicine. That is a joke. Well, this son of a bitch has obviously never witnessed anybody or had anybody directly in his family benefit from cannabis. Or maybe it's just his job to say, "Fuck this medicinal situation. You guys are full of a bunch of crap." More than likely, that's just purely his job. End of story. I don't know. When you start to call things a joke, though, it's pretty personal. Especially when it comes to medical marijuana. And I guess it is that if you end up in a situation where you're the head of the DEA, you got to be pretty anti-pot. Anyway, thanks for hanging in there with me while we talk through my thoughts there. As more and more states experiment with loosening marijuana laws, Rosenberg said that people shouldn't conflate the issue of legalizing recreational marijuana with medicinal marijuana. There are pieces of marijuana extracts or constituents or compound parts. They have great promise medicinally, he said. But if you talk about smoking a leaf of marijuana, which is what people are talking about when they talk about medicinal marijuana, it has never been shown to be safe or effective as a medicine. Rosenberg remarks coincide with the release of the DEA's 2015 National Drug Threat Assessment Summary, which shows that drug use is up among most types of illicit drugs except for cocaine. That's because people can't get cocaine. Cocaine! That's all I've heard, and all I've seen is that the supply of cocaine has dwindled heavily, and that people are flipping over to heroin or substitute cocaine, and that's why we're seeing another huge rise in heroin users. It kind of makes sense. I think a lot of people in certain areas of the country would say that it makes absolute sense. Each day in the United States, over 120 people die as a result of a drug overdose, the report said. Not from weed! The report notes that marijuana remains illegal under federal law, even as states continue to pass laws approving of its use within their state borders. Marijuana concentrates with potency levels far exceeding those of leaf marijuana pose an issue of growing concern, the report says. 17 states. Let's see here. Currently, 23 states in the District of Columbia have passed medical legislation. And the District of Columbia. In addition to 23 states with medical marijuana laws, 17 more have approved legislation regarding CBD-only marijuana. CBD is a cannabinoid, chemical compound of marijuana. That means 80% of states have approved some form of medicinal marijuana. Meanwhile, Washington State, Colorado, Oregon, Alaska, blah, 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 blah. We've already talked about that. Tuesday, voters in Ohio rejected, blah, 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 blah. This article says, I don't know if there's any great lesson to draw from the loss in Ohio. Talks about off-year election turnout. Not a lot of shiz left in there. Just kind of rambles on. One of those Huffington Post press release picked up news articles. So, who actually did write that? They usually tell you. Deputy politics editor with the Huffington Post, Molly Riley. Trying to report it down the middle, but not really getting there. All right, one more story for you here today, and then we'll probably cut her short. I gotta get off to some shiz that's going on tonight. Basically, I got a ditch for a party. Apologies. I know you won't hate me. By the way, if you are listening to this show right now, I hope that you got super, super high before you started listening to this John Doe Radio. Might be the only way you could deal with it. For the last couple of years, Mexican legislator Fernando Balanzaran has watched millions of Americans in 24 states across the country approve the use of marijuana, mostly as a medicine, but also for recreational use in Alaska, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington. As a deputy in the Congress, he has tried to get Mexico to do the same, but the country has stuck to laws banning the drug, although millions and tons of it is harvested in the country every year. Only in recent months has the topic of legalization been taken up in earnest, discussed in courtrooms, in the corridors, and power in the mainstream media. We should have taken up legalization a while ago, he told Fox News. Now we've done it poorly and late, while over in the United States, they've already created an industry, companies that even send marijuana to this country through our porous borders. He said also in Mexico, the politicians are cowards, and even now they accept the debate only because they have had no other choice with legalization in the United States. By the way, I think we went over part of this article. I don't think I read you the whole thing straight right through. Mexico outlawed the cultivation of marijuana in the 1940s, bowing to pressure from the United States, and since then, the Mexican black market for the drug has only grown, empowering the country's already mighty criminal organizations. Belauzeran, I don't know how to say his last name. It's the same guy we're talking about, representative, was one of the first Mexican legislators to bring back the legalization debate. For him, it was an imperative brought about by the country's fights against drug cartels, which since 2006 has left tens of thousands dead. It's more than that. Legislator Elsa Condi has also tried to legalize an industrial production of hemp, a fiber derived from marijuana, that it can be used commercially, and production of rope, clothing, construction material can all be had from it. Like previous proposals, however, Condi has been frustrated by a lack of cooperation from her fellow deputies. Despite that, the fight for marijuana legalization in Mexico is gaining steam, with ordinary citizens taking up the fight to try and force authorities to accept cannabis use. The father of an epileptic 8-year-old girl convinced a federal judge last month that his daughter needed medical marijuana to treat her condition. It's now imported from California at $250 a dose. Another case, so it's definitely. I wonder if the people on the United States side still get in trouble. Man, that's an interesting situation there. Exporting legal cannabis to Mexico. We'll get into that more in the future. I don't want to get off on another rant here. What's at stake is the individual liberty of people, says Justice Arturo Zaldivar, author of the opinion that if approved by the rest of the justices, would set a precedent in Mexico for the legalization of pot, despite the opposition in many of the highest levels of government. We don't want to turn Chapo Guzman into an entrepreneur, said Arturo Escobar y Vega, says the guy with the middle name Escobar, the subsecretary of the Interior Ministry, in a recent interview with the newspaper El Universal, when he was asked about possible legalization. Another powerful opponent includes the Secretary of Health, Mercedes Juan, and President Enrique Peña Nieto himself, who was waiting to take over the presidency in November 2012, when Washington and Colorado became the first in the U.S. to legalize recreational use of marijuana. The chief of Peña Nieto's transition team at the time pointed out that votes complicated matters for the Mexican government. Obviously, we can't handle a product that is illegal in Mexico, trying to stop it from transferring from the United States when the United States, at least in part the United States, now has a different status. He told reporters, "I believe this obliges us to rethink the relationship in regards to security. This is an unforeseen element." Among the official arguments against legalization, opponents point out that Mexico has signed a number of international treaties pledging to fight the trade in marijuana and other illegal drugs, treaties that have been ignored by states in Mexico's northern border. What you saying, we ignoring treaties? State of Colorado? Did we sign a treaty in the state of Colorado? I don't know. Do we care? Not right now. Leopoldo Rivera, editor of the Mexican magazine Hemp, which launched in May and is already under investigation by officials for inciting consumption, said we should do the same as Washington and Colorado, which haven't taken into account international treaties. They said, we live here and we want this for ourselves. So that news story, just stick it on the top of Google News, being a popular news story. Surprisingly, it stuck around, seeing as how it's been delayed. It's just interesting how national cannabis news sticks around for a lot longer now than it used to. More and more agencies start to pick it up, newsrooms start to pick it up, which is pretty awesome. All right. I'm just checking here on Facebook, see if there's any questions. To me telling you if you got any questions. Sorry, my internet's not working. We can't go live. All right, I think that's about it. Plus, I got to get running here. Sorry for the short show. I think you can tell that I'm a little bit sidetracked today. Apologize for that. We'll get back to it tomorrow. We'll have some fun. Hopefully, you did enjoy the good news information that you got today. Super bummed that Ohio couldn't take care of it, but like I said, we'll talk about that more and why it possibly may not be a big deal. And besides, this may not be the best thing to say to people that don't have a whole lot of money right now, because it's super expensive to live here in Colorado, to relocate to Colorado, is that you can always relocate. Always a chance for you to relocate, and if you work really hard to do it, maybe you can get here. If you're in Oklahoma, you should just move here. We got enough homeless people. Blend in with the rest of them. Just get out of Oklahoma. Farg that couch. All right, I'm going to go break in this Brad Tenner glass that I got. Smoke more weed. Go eat, actually. That actually might be part of the problem. I haven't had one bit of food today. 8 o'clock at night here in the Mile High. All right, have yourself a fantastic day. Once again, we'll be back with you tomorrow. Might be another later show. I'm not exactly sure what's going on tomorrow evening. Lots of people in town that I've got to talk to, mend bridges with, bullshiz with, bounce ideas off of, possibly network for you guys and for us and for other business opportunities. So it's been fascinating. It's been awesome, draining to say the least. So I appreciate you guys being a part of the JDR Army. Shout out to everybody that makes this show possible. Cannot thank you all enough. We'll be back with you tomorrow. And then, like I said, stay tuned here in the near future for the longer 3-hour shows and when Bike's back with the crew. Cuckoo. I'm John Doe. Tim Martin. Till next time. Tomorrow. See ya.
Show is produced by Charlie Stash Entertainment. The John Doe Radio Show programming is not limited to, but includes information and humor on counterculture subjects and is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. We specifically include responsible marijuana reform. Besides, listening to anyone but your mother is just plain stupid. We accept no responsibility for your actions or misrepresentations, and we do not fully endorse the use of illegal drugs. You are ultimately responsible for yourself.
JDR News. Live.